Coming to you from Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, this is the Quinn Spinn. Hey now, and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of the Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, the Quinn. I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, YouTube, and more for another rousing and riveting installment of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective. And that was Revel 9's All I Become. You heard at the top of the show, our opening theme song since the great year of 2014. And it will be until the very end of days. Year 10 Overdrive continues. You can at least partially see the giant number 10 behind us with the Quinn Spinn logo. 10th birthday coming up, and we have another very special guest. We have hip-hop artist, podcaster, gaming enthusiast, 2-4 joining us on the show.
What's happening? What's going on?
Very excited to have you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover today. Before we dive into all the things, I'm going to ask you the 3 standard questions I ask everybody who comes on the show. Feel free to take these however you want.
Cool.
Those 3 questions are, who are you? What are your passions? And why on earth would you want to come on the Quinn Spinn?
Well, like you said, I am 2-4, born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. So, you know, one of those unicorns you hear a lot about.
A rarity.
That's exactly right. I am a very eclectic person, but I am also a very simple person at the same time. Like I said, born and raised here in Nashville. I've sat here and watched the city, you know, grow into this monstrosity that it is. And, you know, basically my music has kind of followed that trajectory, I guess you could say. When starting out in life, I was a huge athlete. I basically played sports all the way to college. And so as that journey was kind of progressing, so did my music kind of follow it, you know, my emotions, the things I was going through, all of that stuff. And also, you know, all of my other passions that kind of floated into it, as far as, you know, like you said, gaming. I'm kind of into fashion, you know, just a whole bunch of different things. And it just kind of makes me, you know, in a unique way. Give me the second question.
Well, you covered it. What are your passions?
I was going to say, well, yeah, my passions, like I said, gaming, music, fashion. I like cars. You know, I'm not really like I can't necessarily like work on cars and stuff like that, but I do love pretty cars. And, you know, just kind of vibing out. I love Nashville, you know, been here all my life. So, you know, I like being around the city, watching it grow, going to different restaurants and stuff. You know, I like to travel, but at the same time, you know, Nashville is very much home. And that's the reason why I love being on the shows, because, you know, things that happen in Nashville are very unique, you know what I'm saying? And yes. I feel like Nashville as a whole, you know, one of the great things about Nashville is we come together quite well, as far as no matter if it's musically or, you know, artistry in kind of any form. Nashville is very unique in that aspect. And so anything that has to do with Nashville, anybody that's in Nashville, you know, I love to vibe with it, and, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, go from there.
Absolutely. Well, happy to have you. I'm really interested to hear more about your athletic background, because, like, for me, I played football, high school, college, a little bit of semi-pro, tried out for arena, didn't make it. And then I'm like, all right, I'm done. If I'm not going to get paid, I'm not going to bash my head in anymore.
Right.
But, like, I find so many lessons from, like, football, from sports, like showing up in the independent entrepreneur hustle, right? Like the sense of resilience, the grit,
right? Like
it shows up in different ways. And like, I find myself drawing on that time in my life. And I'm wondering, you know, how that shows up for you.
So to start out, let me name all of the sports that I had played or played all the way up to college. And basically when I got to high school, I started to narrow it down. But starting out, I played baseball, basketball, football, or ran track. There was a little time where lacrosse was in there a little bit. Believe it or not, I was kind of training to be on the bowling team. You know, just so like I just love sports. Sports is like my thing, and you know, these days I love going to the soccer games and stuff like that. So sports has very much been a part of my life, you know, since the very beginning. And so as I was sort of narrowing down, and I played football, that was my main sport. And so the lessons learned is, like you said, the resiliency, the things that, you know, all of the things you really have to go through to become, you know, because I thought that was, you know, one of the dreams. I thought I was going pro.
Right.
And, you know, I thought I was, you know, going to be doing all of these things athletically. But oddly enough, that journey kind of got cut short a little bit, mostly by me, and you know, life kind of happens. But that's where my music started to develop, is that like all of the things in the background that a lot of athletes don't really talk about, as far as like the things they're dealing with and stuff like that. Music was that outlet for me, and so that's where I started to develop my songwriting and started to develop, you know, just my artistry as a whole. Like, okay, this is really starting to, you know, become a thing where like it's just not a hobby anymore. Now it's more like, okay, I have a passion for this. I really love doing this. And so that's really, you know, when I was in college, that was really kind of like, you know, like I want to do music. Like this is what I want to do. Like not really sure where I'm going with it just yet, but I know that music has a place in my life somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And so basically after I cut out sports, and I started to go full bore into the music, then I started to like, okay, yeah, this is really what I need to be doing with my life. Like I feel like this is my calling, and this is what I need to, you know what I'm saying, be trying to pursue a little bit more.
Yeah. Was there a particular experience or like event, you know, along your musical journey that kind of flipped the switch for you? Like, this is what I'm doing?
So it kind of happened in stages. So in high school, you know, I was, you know, in English class and doing all this stuff like, you know, a lot of other people. And so we had this like poetry contest. And my teacher at the time was like, you know, you should enter. You know, your stuff is really good. And basically, I didn't know what I was doing. All I was doing was writing like basically verses, basically. I was like, okay, you know, listening to songs at home and stuff like that. And so I'm like, you know, okay, I'll try it out. Well, long story short, I basically kind of swept the whole competition. I kind of won the whole thing. It kind of got in the school paper, all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, that's something. And so that started to sort of pique my interest a little bit. But also I had the luxury of having an audio engineering class at my high school. And so first starting out, like before I knew that like kind of songwriting and writing music and stuff was really my thing, I started, you know, try to produce beat making and stuff like that. We had a studio at the school, and so I'm learning about Pro Tools. I'm learning about all these different things about being in the studio, because that was the first time I had really ever been in a studio ever. And so, you know, playing keyboard and you just kind of learning different things and learning the outlets and, you know, just kind of watching. And then it got to the point to where I was like, okay, now let me try to, you know, let's see what the step up is, you know. And so I first started to get in the studio, Music Row, you know, all these different studios I was trying to, you know, get into, and, you know, music that sounded quite terrible, but you know what I'm saying? It was a experience, you know, that I won't really forget, because it was just like, okay, this is the start. You know, I'm not sure, like I hadn't fully built my identity yet as an artist, and you know, I'm still trying to figure out, okay, my voice as far as like my tone and, you know, just different things like that. And so the steps, you know, as my life kind of progressed and kind of went through different experiences and stuff, is really kind of what helped me kind of progress my music career. It just kind of followed my life, really.
Yeah, you know, and I think those early formative experiences in your passion are so important too, because like you figure out what works and what doesn't. You know, I mean, I say this on the show all the time. There are definitely shows from this 10 years that are in the vault that will never come out of the vault. You know, there's definitely content we've created that, like, if I were to, you know, look back on it, I wouldn't be proud of. And I'm sure, like, even looking back, there'd be stuff that would surprise me, you know, like, wow, that was actually, you know, for 2014, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But like it all, like, even if something doesn't go well, doesn't turn out the way you want, even if it's not good quality, what it does is it points your compass toward what is good. You learn from it.
Because I definitely got hard drives with, you know, with music on it. I was like, yeah, that's never seeing the light of day. But it is like, sometimes I will go back to like the beginning, like to some old songs, just to be like, okay, just to kind of, you know, give myself that direction of, okay, this is where I started. You know, now I feel like I'm in a, you know, great place as far as musically, and I kind of know how my direction goes and, the sounds that I want to do and just different things like that. So just kind of keeping that perspective of where I kind of came from as far as to, in the future, now and then going into the future, kind of where I want to, be at. So I think it is important to kind of, it's almost like you cataloging your journey almost, you know what I'm saying? And like you said, a lot of people might not see that stuff that's in the vault, and, you never know. It might become a time where it's like, I might just drop this just to give people a perspective of, what really, this is and where this actually came from.
Right.
So,
and it's inspiring for you too, because you get to see how far you've come, in that time. So like from point A to point B, you go that same distance rather from B to C.
Right.
And it's like, where are you going to be then? You know, like it just shows that you can come a long way over time if you stick with something, and it gives you that extra inspiration. Right.
And as somebody like me, I deal with like anxiety and depression and stuff like that. And so sometimes, when things don't necessarily work out the way you kind of want them to, or, a situation kind of arises and you really, are kind of lost in, the moment, I guess, like that can kind of bring you back to reality a little bit as far as, okay, I'm all right. That didn't work out. Now I know, kind of what did work, what didn't work. And now I can kind of pivot and, maybe try again and see, maybe next time if I take a different step, maybe I have a different outcome. So
yeah. The more lumps you take, the more accustomed you are to taking them, and as somebody who's, I've been pretty open about mental health, on my end throughout the course of my journey here. And, it's important to have those things that you can refer to,
right.
And not that you want to go back to that time, like the simpler times or whatever, but it's like, hey, like I did things that, really started to propel this forward. It's capturing those things that worked and applying them to your current situation, and reminding yourself too that like there are these ups and downs, and like you're not going to stay up here forever. You're not going to stay down here forever. It's an ebb and flow.
What's that quote? This too shall pass. It is kind of keeping, trying to keep that level. You know what I'm saying? Just making sure that, if it didn't work, it's all right. You know what I'm saying? If it did work, I mean, it's still all right. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of keeping that level and, kind of keeping that perspective on, whatever that goal is or whatever, you want to kind of accomplish down the line. So.
Yeah. It is a grind though, and it is tough to, keep everything in balance, keep yourself in balance, everything in check, from a mental, emotional standpoint.
Right.
Is there anything, any techniques that you've discovered over the course of your journey that like help you keep everything in balance? Like as far as self-care, as far as, your routine, like things that kind of help you keep in balance so you can remain at your highest level?
So, at being an athlete, I still keep up with my workout. I basically almost not to the T, but I almost basically kind of keep the same workouts that I was doing, back when I was playing. So that also kind of contributes to my self-care and kind of, it kind of helps my mentals like in the moment and stuff like that. But also recently getting back into doing yoga and meditating and stuff like that. And, just sometimes I'll have my earbuds in. If I have a moment, I'll just pop on some ambient music or something, or just something that kind of calms me down, just breathe, just kind of try to remember where I am like in the in the space. And so just try to not get too high, get too low. And so like you said, it is a challenge. It's not something, it's easy for people to say, it's gonna be all right. Well, like in the moment I ain't all right, what I'm saying? So like sometimes it is kind of easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you kind of, like you said, you always have these things that can kind of bring you back a little bit and kind of help you exhale a little bit. And so, like I said, I do the self-care thing. I try to do, facial routines and, sometimes go get massages, try to take myself some, a nice vacation or something, just try to, decompress a little bit. Cause, like you said, it is a grind. It is a lot of stress. And so, the less of that you can kind of, keep on your plate, the better off you'll be. So I just try to do a little bit of everything. And I'm also down to like, I'm always trying to find different ways of like, oh, maybe that can help, or maybe, maybe that can take me to a place where, maybe I haven't, thought about or experienced or something like that. So.
Yeah, you have to find ways to step away and fill your cup once in a while. And growing up in Nashville, but also having Nashville be the center of the music industry and the music universe, like being at home, I'm sure for you it can be hard to step away. Like I'm not even from here, and I find it hard, like when I'm in Nashville, to not focus on work.
Yeah.
I had a friend visit recently, and it was like, my mind was so on work. I didn't feel like I was present, but like if I go back home to New Jersey or Pennsylvania, it's like, okay, like I'm there, and that's an opportunity. So like being from here, and with so much of the music industry and so much of what you're pursuing being right here in Music City, like, is there anywhere in particular you like to go to try to get away from that to come back refreshed?
That's a good one. I like I said, I do like to try to vacay every now and again. And that does, like, vacations really do help me kind of get out of, kind of the Nashville rush, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And also because, like, even though Nashville is home, it is, my comfort and stuff like that. Even like some of the experiences that I've had musically in Nashville haven't always been great. And so, there's things that like I've experience, with different people or different people I've worked with or something like that didn't go, right. And even with kind of just the way the kind of the music industry works here in general, like, especially me being a hip hop artist, like it's not, that many avenues as far as trying to get yourself out there. And so like I've had to kind of put myself in different positions to where like I kind of have to force people to hear me, you know what I'm saying? Instead of, everybody knows it's the home of country music. That's not going to change. And so a lot of the, people, whether it's artists, executives or whatever, I mean, that's kind of the mindset. I mean, it is what it is. And so, I've kind of had to, kind of step outside the box. I've had to think outside of the box. Like I've had to perform at different places where it probably wasn't really conducive for, it wasn't really my crowd or, but I still got up there and did my thing and, left with a few fans. And so it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to, in a way, not necessarily force it, but you do have to kind of put yourself out there and kind of do it in a way that's, respectful, but also in a way that's like, I'm gonna make sure you hear me. I'm gonna make sure that, my art and my voice is not getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. How do you feel, if you feel, how is the landscape within Nashville and its embrace of hip hop evolved over, because you've been here your entire life,
right?
Certainly the city itself has changed. Has that been reflected in the culture embracing hip hop though?
I believe that, kind of starting at the beginning, like I feel like hip hop had a presence, but like it was so minute, like that, like you had to really know where to go and you really had to seek it out in a way. Now, I can tell you multiple times, like where I'm walking, I might be on Broadway or just, in the city doing something, and people be like, I like country and everything, but like, where am I, where's the pop? Where's the hip hop? Where's the, and so like people are seeking it out now. And I think also that, the melting pot that Nashville is, got different cultures, different people coming from everywhere. And so naturally, as the city grows, naturally as kind of things progress and people, hip hop is, one of the top genres now. So, like, it's not like, it's hidden, what I'm saying? And I think the more that, like I said, the city grows and stuff like that, the more venues will start to pop up and, different people will start to seek it out. So it's definitely grown, as the city has grown. It'll like I said, I think it'll always still kind of be backseat to kind of the other genres as far as like country and folk and stuff like that in the city, and that's just because the history of the city and kind of how it is. Like, country singers come to Nashville to try to make it. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. And so I have had multiple people say, man, you need to probably be in LA or you need to probably be in Atlanta or something like that. And I look at that as like, I obviously try to touch those spots and try to reach out to those places, but I almost look at it as a situation of, if I can make it in my city, if I can make it here, then I can create something that's a little bit more organic. I can do it in a way that is, people will kind of see it and gravitate toward it a little bit more. And then, once we kind of build a foothold like that, then we can start to spread out, you know what I'm saying? And I'd rather do it like that, a little bit more grassroots, and kind of let Nashville kind of not necessarily dictate it, but kind of let Nashville feel it and then kind of develop its own type of sound and culture and stuff like that, and then start to push it. I don't want to just go to another place and be like, hey, you know, I'm here now, so let's, you know, kind of do this thing.
Yeah, because the ingredients are there. I mean, I'll be here, it'll be 5 years in November, and just in that time, like seeing how hip hop has become more prominent, R&B soul has become more prominent in Nashville. It's encouraging. Like, and I know other artists who, you know, think that same way. It's like, well, why would I go somewhere else when there's something to build here?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of culture here, you know.
And that's the thing. It's like very eclectic too. It's
Mm-hmm.
like even the people that like, you know, might do country or country is that like they like hip hop too.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And like me, I'm very eclectic in my music taste. Like I like a bunch of different genres and things like that. So I think, you know, as it starts, like I said, just the growth, like as it grows, as it starts to, you know, a rising tide, you know, floats all boats. And so, you know, hopefully, you know, the city's only growing by the day. And so the more that continues to happen, I think, you know, hip hop as well as all the other genres that are, you know, on the come up will continue to kind of grow and kind of feed itself, really.
Yeah, it reminds me, a good friend of the show, Lord Goldie, she's been on a couple times. She's a hip hop artist in town, if you're familiar. You know, similar mindset as far as like getting into spaces that hip hop wouldn't normally be. She performs with a full band called Muja. They're tremendous, just tight musicians. And like, she's able to go around to different venues where hip hop traditionally hasn't been or hasn't been welcome.
Right.
And show people like the musicality, show people, you know, the energy behind it, a different side to the genre.
Like, because I mean, like I've performed at Hard Rock.
Yeah.
I've performed like in a little space down at BB King's, like different spaces where hip hop is not really the thing. At like the Hard Rock show that I did, like I was the only hip hop artist. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like you have to kind of like find those ways. And the good thing about it is like these places that, you know, book all these artists and stuff like that, they're open to it. That, you know, and that is also another thing where it's like, it's not so much closed off anymore, you know, and like I probably wouldn't have been able to do that show, you know, way back when, you know, at the Hard Rock or something like that. And so I think more people are starting to open up to, you know, hip hop really, you know, it is a really big genre. You know, there are different avenues that different people can kind of take it. And so, you know, hopefully more people continue to, you know, kind of gravitate towards that. And, you know, I love working with different artists, especially if they're not in the genre, because then I can kind of introduce them to some things. They can introduce me to some things. And then we can kind of, you know what I'm saying, as I progress and maybe I have a different project, I'm like, hey, you know, I learned that skill. I learned that kind of thing. Maybe I can kind of use that on a different project or something like that. So,
yeah. And at the end of the day, we're all fighting a similar battle as independent artists.
Oh, for sure.
You know, it looks different, you know, based on what we do. You know, whether it's genre-wise, whether we're musicians or content creators or, you know, some other role in the industry. But at the end of the day, we're all starting from zero. And the best way to attack that is to work together.
Yeah, for sure.
I love what you said about the rising tide raises all boats. We say that all the time here, too, because it's like, there's nothing you can do without other people. You know, like you can't do it all by yourself.
Music is a collaborative effort in general. So, yeah there is no like, you know, there's nobody out here doing it by themselves at all. And so, especially like a place like here where a lot of people are very generous with their time and, you know what I'm saying, are willing to kind of step outside their comfort zones a little bit. I think that's what makes Nashville special, really.
Yeah. Is that kind of, even though it's a metropolitan area, there is still kind of that small town, like help your neighbor mentality, you know, pay it forward.
It's the volunteer state for a reason. I mean, you know, it's that really is like people really do embrace that. Even people that, you know, may have just moved here, like people say it all the time, like you can feel it. Like, you know, it's one of those things, you're walking down the street, if something happens, you know, it's going to be a lot of people that's probably going to be trying to help, you know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things where like, it's a very unique place to be and like a lot of unique people in it.
Yeah. I've always felt since the first time I visited, like if you're doing good work for the right reasons and you come here with good intentions, like people are going to want to help, show you the way, take you under their wing, and eventually you get to a point where you can do that for others. It's a pay it forward kind of culture. People want to help, you know, like I grew up in New Jersey. I'm used to New York where it's like there's a fight in the subway and people are standing around filming it. Nobody's stepping in to break it up. You know, here, to your point, like people are willing to help. You walk down the street in your neighborhood, people actually wave to you and say hi.
Yeah.
Maybe
That
stop
Southern
and talk.
hospitality. I mean, because I've been to New York and holding doors for people and stuff like that. That's how I was
Right.
brought up. And so like people, I was getting like weird looks like I don't need you to hold the door for me and stuff. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
this definitely ain't home. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
I think just kind of like those values and that hospitality and things like that are ingrained in the fabric of Nashville as a whole.
Yeah, I just remember once upon a time I worked in New York and I was commuting, there several times a week. And I just remember thinking one day, like, I'm sitting on the train on the way back into Jersey, and there's one guy on the train trying to make conversation with the people around him. And I'm like, that guy's not from here.
Yeah.
Because like that's how you know someone's not
Uh-huh.
from New York, because they're the
Yeah.
person that's actually trying to engage with people,
Yeah.
not just looking straight ahead or down their
That
phone.
tunnel vision. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess it's just like New York to me, and I'm not throwing shade, but like it's such sensory overload. There's
Yeah.
so much going on.
Yeah, that's true.
So many people, and especially post 9/11, it's kind of been a different
Yep.
culture up there,
Mm-hmm.
where like everyone's even more on their guard than
Yeah.
they were before.
Yep. For sure.
So, but I love you, New York, but that's
Y'all make great sandwiches. I'll give you that.
Oh, Katz's Deli. You ever go to Katz's Deli?
I don't know if I went there, and I'm not sure. I remember I had a bunch of sandwiches when I went, though. I'm not sure where they came from, but I know they were all good, though.
Oh yeah, pastrami at Katz's Deli.
Yeah. Okay.
Unbelievable. Next time you go.
Yeah, I'll keep that. I'll keep that in the memory bank for sure.
So you're versatile, of course, outside of music as well. You've got, of course, a very strong passion for gaming, and you have your own podcast. So always like talking to another podcaster. So tell us a little bit about it.
So really, it didn't even really start out as a podcast. Really, it started out as just me trying to attempt, having a Twitch channel, and, trying to attempt the whole gaming hustle, I guess you could say. And it kind of developed into this thing called Jams and Joysticks is what it's called. And so how it started was basically I was like, I like gaming, I do a bit of gaming, when I do have a little bit of free time. But what if I was gaming with other artists? What if maybe we can kind of share ideas and stuff like that. And so it started to where I was like, maybe I could interview some people and, see if they would be interested, kind of see how it goes. And so it started out to where I would interview somebody and then like we would just get on the game and just kind of chat a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like just a natural little thing. And it's kind of grown into this thing to where like, I'm interviewing, people constantly. People are constantly hitting me up, hey, can I get interviewed? And, recently I've been doing a lot of people within the gaming industry as a whole. And the reason why I think it's kind of important is because especially as an independent artist, we don't really think about income streams that are in the gaming industry.
Right.
And so like, but you got to think like it's hard pressed for you to find a game that doesn't have music, and so like the whole syncing opportunities and things like that could possibly pop up. And so I basically reached out to a lot of people within the gaming industry, build those relationships. And so it's like, if I can build those relationships, they get to know me, I get to know them, we can kind of mesh. And so then, I kind of have aspirations of wanting to go to these different gaming conferences and go to maybe set up a booth or something and kind of interact with different people. And in turn, I'm kind of getting myself out there. I'm getting my music out there. Obviously, I use my music as a lot of the background for the show. And so naturally, my music kind of gets out there a little bit. And then, later this year, I'll actually be getting back to doing some streaming and stuff like that. And so, as I do game people within the industry, other artists and stuff like that, I'm getting myself out there for one, but also I'm kind of, collaborating, potentially looking for different opportunities as far as sponsorships and different things like that. And so I think it's a big melting pot, and a lot of people don't know the gaming industry as far as revenue is bigger than the music industry. It's bigger than the movie industry. And so, sometimes you got to go where the money is. And so, especially like I said, I'm kind of big and kind of looking into syncing opportunities and stuff like that. And so, different games that I listen to, I'm listening to the soundtracks. I'm listening to, the different things that are kind of popping up and people are saying about it. And so just doing that deep dive a little bit and kind of picking people's brains as far as how they feel about it, kind of how they go about looking for music. And, especially like a lot of the indie gamers, people in the indie gaming culture to where like they don't have the major budgets. They don't have like these super huge AAA games to where like, they're putting millions of dollars. And so, if they have a small budget, they might be looking for a small artist, you know what I'm saying, or a smaller artist. And just those collaborations and, who's to say, maybe somebody might hear your music on that game. That's how they follow you. Now they're a fan for life, And so it's just building those different relationships and those different things. And it's been pretty cool to kind of witness and experience and kind of get people's, 2 cents on all of it.
Yeah. I think back to high school when Madden started doing the soundtracks every year. And like, there are still songs from those Madden soundtracks that I have on playlists today, like my gym playlist, everything. Like, that like when I was playing football in high school, it's like you leaned on that music. And I feel like when Madden started doing that, EA started doing that, like it really changed the game and like opened up so many opportunities for artists and for the crossover between those worlds. And like it's set up for this day and age where like all these worlds of entertainment cross over so frequently. I think of
and everybody's dabbling in all this different stuff too. So like, you have a lot of artists you see, especially your major artists, they kind of transition from possibly being a full-time artist to now they're doing movies and now they're doing all these different things. They're streaming on YouTube, they're doing all these different stuff. And so there's a lot of opportunity as far as maybe I still want to do my music, but maybe I want to focus a little bit on something else. Maybe maybe this opportunity is kind of calling and I always wanted to do it but never really had the opportunity, and maybe my music career kind of gives me the opportunity to do that. And so it's really interesting to kind of see how all of it kind of fits together. It is like a big puzzle, you know what I'm saying? Like it is the music, the movies, the gaming. I mean, all of it has a place, especially now that social media is this just gigantic thing. Like that's kind of where it all meets, in the middle really, and it kind of meshes together, and it in a way it's almost kind of sensory overload a little bit, but it all has its place. And especially if you find that one thing that you can kind of gravitate to and you can kind of attach that one thing to, I think it overall it's only going to get bigger as far as once AI gets more developed and all of this different stuff that's on the horizon, VR and all these different things. You're going to be able to do a bunch of different things, like especially I think that kind of crossover kind of accelerated when the pandemic happened actually. And so now people are more open to online concerts and VR concerts and all these different things, even though the outside is opening back up a little bit more. That's another revenue stream. It's still a way to connect with your fans. It's still a way to kind of do something extra. And so I think it's going to play a big part the more that all of this stuff gets developed.
Yeah, because if you want to spend a quiet night in now, you have more options. You have more entertainment options. More of the entertainers are presenting things virtually or hybrid, like coming to you from their live show, but you could also buy a virtual ticket if they're not coming to your city.
Right.
I mean, there have been so many advances, and I think that's one of the silver linings of the pandemic is for creatives, independent creatives, especially, it's opened up a world of revenue possibilities that maybe we weren't thinking of before because we were thinking of the more traditional get out, play shows.
Right.
It's still important to do that, but also like we have the tools that we've never had before to reach new fans and to cross over between our passions. And like one piece of your creative output in one area of passion can open doors for you in another.
Right.
Like I think of like people like in the world of pro wrestling, right, who have gone into like acting, who've gone into music, like somebody like Xavier Woods, who's gone into the gaming world and has really been embraced by that culture as well as the pro wrestling culture.
Somebody like T-Pain, who I mean had a huge music career, and now he's basically hitting it off on YouTube. Like so, I mean, like it is a interesting dynamic to where like you can and I mean, now granted, obviously like that, their main passion obviously fuels kind of that,
it's what brought
them I mean, obviously that kind of, as far as financially, as far as, the image and stuff, like if you already kind of got that fan base, if you build a fan base, you basically do whatever you want. I mean, so I think it just opens up, like you said, a lot of possibilities, a lot of other income streams, especially for independents, to where like at first it was, I don't know how to get in that door. Like, how am I supposed to get my music on a game? And now you can, not necessarily that it's super easy, because it's definitely not, but it is easier in the aspect of where like you can find these different curators
Yeah.
and these different people that are playlisting this stuff and soundtracking this stuff, and you know, you never know, and it sometimes it's the smallest people, like you know what I'm saying, it's not always like that big executive in that
Right.
big company. You might see the smallest person, you might reach out to them on Instagram, and you never know what can come of that.
Right.
And so I think just that, in you know, that dynamic of, hey, I can DM this person and nothing may come of it, but
Right.
something might, you know,
Yeah.
even if it's just me interviewing them or me, you know, hey, you know, I got this song that, you know, I see you working on this game. Hey,
Yeah.
I got something that might potentially, you know, you might could use, you know, and it's not always, especially as an independent, you got to get creative.
Yes.
And so like, you know, all of us want to get paid, obviously, but sometimes it's like, hey, I'm not necessarily worried about the money, you know, up front. I just kind of need the exposure.
Yeah.
Or I kind of just want to see kind of where this takes me as far as, hey, you know, keep me in mind, you know, if you got another project down the road, or if you got something, you know, and you never know, that small executive might become a big executive.
Yeah.
And at that time they might, you know, I remember that, you know, that artist that, you know, that did something for, you know, let me go see what they got going on, or let me go see. Yeah. And so it's one of those things to where that opportunity for that, you know, it moment, you never know when that can happen. And so it's about, you know, being consistent and, you know, just kind of stepping out the box as far as like, you know, hey, it's not always about trying to catch the big fish. Sometimes you kind of got to baby step your way into a different industry, a different passion. Cause like not only gaming, like I love, like, especially here in Nashville, I like going to the art crawls. I love art. And so like just kind of art in its different forms, like, you never know, like like if I meet an artist, like maybe I can get them to paint something, maybe, you know what I'm saying, maybe I can find somebody who's doing some type of photography, which, you know, obviously you need a photographer, you need a videographer, all this different stuff. And so you never know the doors that can open, you know, just experiencing all that.
Yeah, and every single opportunity, every shot you take, it's an at bat. You know, it's a chance, and like it doesn't have to be a swing for the fences. Sometimes the single, the shallow left is even more effective, you know, than the fly out at the warning track. You know, like every single thing is an opportunity, and there are more opportunities than ever out there for all of us. And I think what it really comes down to is like embracing what that means for you as far as your interests and rolling that into your personal brand. Because I think for so long, like artists have either been confused as to how to develop a personal brand or have been against the idea because it's selling out. No, it's not. It's just putting out there who you are and what your interests are and finding opportunities based on those interests. It doesn't mean you're being inauthentic. As a matter of fact, if you're doing it right, you're being completely authentic. You know? And so it's about identifying what that means for you and being this multifaceted human being that you are, just in a public consciousness.
And that's the challenge too, because like, you know, as I'm doing, you know, jams and joysticks, and, you know, now I'm a little bit more conscious of the music that I'm making. So now it's like, you know, I'm not necessarily making music, you know, for a game or nothing like that per se, but it's like, you know, maybe I can kind of tailor the sound a little bit to where like it might lend itself a little bit more to, you know, that curator maybe wanting to take a second listen at me, or you know, things like that, or just being able to like, you know, or vice versa, you know what I'm saying? Like these curators, they're looking, they're, you know, they're scouring the airwaves and they're scouring the social media for that, you know, and I mean, not only the gamers and stuff, but also the people we want to hear, you know, people in the industry, people in these different, you know, if you want a record deal or stuff like that, people are listening. And so, you know, if you have a, like you said, a brand, and you can find a way to kind of tailor all of the things that you're doing into that brand and make it unique and authentic, you can do whatever you want. You know, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, is you can do whatever you want. I mean, as long as you're, you know, being true to self and, you know, keeping it quality and keeping it authentic. I mean, you know, people gravitate to that. So.
Basically what you're doing is you're connecting to people with similar interests, but you're doing it, you know, from a business standpoint as well. Which is the smartest thing you can do here in the 21st century as any kind of independent creative or entrepreneur.
Everything is a business, but not only that, you are a business. And so, you know, having that mindset of, you know, everything, having that business mindset, you know, everything that I do, you kind of keep that in the back of your mind, like, hey, this is potentially another income stream. Hey, this is potentially a way to kind of get my brand in front of more people, in front of people who've never even heard of me. And so I think it's a very unique time that we're living in, to where, it's like, especially like somebody like me, I hate social media. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I am not a fan. Like, but I understand how powerful it is,
Yes.
and I do realize that I have to put myself out there, and I have to be my authentic self, even though I don't like, social media. I mean, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just finding a way to tailor it to where I can still be myself and not feel like I'm giving away pieces of, oh, I'm not being authentic, or I'm just doing this just because I have to do this and stuff like that. And so it's just finding those ways, and that's the part of being a creative and being independent.
Yeah, you make it your own.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all about making it your own and making it something that's true to you and your vision, your passions, what you see for your life and your career. At the end of the day, it's simple. It's a simple concept.
Yep.
I think we overcomplicate it based on, seeing on social media what other people are doing.
Yeah.
The TikTok dances, the trends.
Like, that's not me. Like, I'm not like, I'm still fine. Like, I have a TikTok and stuff, but I haven't really gotten into the TikTok machine, as it were. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, currently it's like, okay, how can I fully get into this? Obviously it's a huge space for musicians and artists as a whole. How can I do this to where, like, I don't have to get on here and do 75 dances, but how can I still put myself out there to where it's like, hey, like, it's not always just about my music, or how it's not always just, people want to see, like, and I've kind of learned that from social media too. People want to see the quirky stuff.
Yeah.
Like, people want to see, the day-to-day stuff just as much as they want to see you doing your art or want to hear your music and stuff like that. And
the
so,
humor.
yeah. And so, like, it's, especially like me, like, I'm a nerd. I like to read. I like to do all this different stuff. And so, like, it's like finding a way to incorporate that and still be able to feel comfortable that, hey, I'm still being myself. This is not, totally so off base to where, like, people are looking at it and I feel like people are looking at me and they're just staring at the wall type thing.
Yeah.
And so, it's definitely an interesting time as far as, TikTok and Instagram and all these different socials. And, it's only going to get, I guess I say worse, but I mean, it's only going to get bigger. And, as, these different VRs and metas and all of these different worlds and stuff, as AI is really going to be the next kind of stepping stone. Because when AI starts to really kind of take off, I think that's really that's like the next evolution, the next step, as far as, like, now you're just going to have to tell something what to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not even like a thing of like, I have to do this, and this. Now you can create an algorithm, and now you can, and I mean, it's going to have its good and bads, but I think that's kind of the next step, is the whole AI VR type of, concept, I guess you could say.
As it continues to evolve, our brains will have to continue to adapt to it. And that's, I think, where the challenge is. I think, at the advent of social media, like, that was the challenge. Our brains had never had something like that before. And like, it brought out a lot of ugliness about humanity, which I feel like has started to taper off a bit.
But I mean, what a time it was when MySpace was here. You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. Like, AO, like, when dial-up started to phase its way out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I lived in, like, an interesting time where, like, I caught the very end of, like, dial-up and AOL and all of that stuff, and
the CDs,
exactly.
DVDs,
so, like,
whatever,
and I mean, really from cassettes to CDs to, and now it's almost in a way kind of going backwards now. Like, vinyl and cassettes and stuff are starting to be back in style and stuff. So it's very interesting to, like, see how kind of even the stuff that are kind of had phased itself out is kind of starting to become collector's items and things that people actually want again.
Yeah. I remember the end of vinyl, like, its first heyday, like late 80s, early 90s. I was born in 87. And, like, we had a record player, but then, like, once it broke, it's like, well, we're not replacing that because the future's here. It's cassettes.
Now you can
CDs.
get one for about $40 if you want. I mean, they're everywhere now. I mean, and I've kind of thought about, like, make, like, kind of incorporating that into kind of what I'm doing. Like, if I do a major release or something, maybe I might make it a collector's edition where, like, I get 10 printed or something like that and autograph it and make it into some merch and stuff like that. As an independent, you kind of got to think of different ways to where, like, money's not always just rolling in constantly like that. You don't have, like, an advance, you don't have all this different stuff. And so, like, thinking of ways to where, like, merch and, different ways to kind of keep that brand kind of flowing, kind of keep that thing kind of going. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's so many ways to do it. You know,
Yeah.
it's just finding the ones that I think are right for you.
Yep.
You know, and that resonate not only with you but with your audience. So we've talked about a lot of multifaceted aspects of the entertainment industry. I do want to get back to the music though, because you did just release a single last month. Freak This is out now as of February 10th. It's been out about a month as of release date for this episode. Let's talk about that creative process.
So the way my creative process kind of works is basically how I write all my music. I rarely get the time to sit down and write. Like I can't even tell you the last time I just sat down and just started writing. Like I'm always writing on the go. And so the way that my creative process works is I try to incorporate a lot of what I see, a lot of what I've experienced and things like that. And kind of Freak This kind of came out to where it was, I would, like, in a way, it's kind of hard to call it motivational, but it really kind of is, like, within the lyrics and things like that. And it's just like a thing of, you know, people kind of want to, you know, especially in the music industry, like, you don't always have a lot of fans. A lot of people do want to see you fall. A lot of people do want to see you down. And so, like, Freak This kind of came out to where it's like, yeah, you might be there, but I mean, you got to watch me do my thing too. So, I mean, like, that's kind of how the concept kind of came about. And, you know, my writing process is like, I'm constantly thinking of like different bars and different things to where, you know, I'm on the go, and you know, I just constantly, like, if you see me just constantly walking with the phone, like I'm hammering it out, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, my creative process is very, in a way, like, it started out very difficult because it's really hard to kind of do that because I'm always on the go. I'm always, you know, working or doing something. And so it's hard to find that space to really be in, like, fully immersed in that creative kind of environment. And so I've learned to, like, the things that I'm doing, the things that I experience, the things that I see, especially being in Nashville with all the different things that are popping up every day and stuff like that, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to kind of create you know, kind of my own world in my head. And honestly, I think that's the good part of my anxiety, is that, like, I do have, like, and I just recently learned this from my therapist, not everybody has that inner voice type of thing. I definitely do. And so, like, when things are starting to spark my, you know, interest, and, like, I am kind of like having that mental moment, like, in a way, it does help kind of fuel my writing, because it's like, okay, I'm kind of thinking, you know, I kind of have to
strike while the iron's hot.
I kind of have to do what I'm doing, but also I have this thought in my head, let me go ahead and, you know, basically kind of embrace it, kind of just kind of lean into it. And so basically Freak This, I think I probably wrote Freak This in probably, I would say I wrote that in 2 hours, probably. Like, some of them just crank out like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have some songs that took me months to write. You know, I have some songs that are, you know, the quickest song I've ever written is probably like 15 minutes. And so, like, that one was a quick one, but now I have so much to fall back on as far as I've released more music. Like, I've kind of experienced, like, okay, I'm not really finding my voice anymore. I'm kind of, I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? I get in the studio, I've rehearsed, I know what, you know, I want it to sound like. And I think that whole, you know, kind of knowing my identity kind of helps with my music now. And so, you know, Freak This was one of those songs where, like, it came out very naturally. Like, it was one of those things where, like, you know, I'm not trying too hard. Like, I'm not, you know, trying to be something I'm not or whatever. Here it is. Like, I'm kind of, and, like, my music and my lyrics are already kind of, like, in your face, kind of raw and kind of, you know, things like that. And so songs like that kind of make it, especially like something that's motivational, and especially if I'm in a moment or something like that, like, I write a lot about my feelings and emotions and stuff. And so Freak This definitely came out pretty, you know, pretty unique in that fashion.
And it's there's something to be said there too, I think, about harnessing that anxious energy and that anxiety and turning it into a superpower. Because it can serve as a detriment. If you like, because I know this too, because I deal with it as well, and it's like, if you really start spinning in your head, spinning the wrong way, it can be a detriment and a distraction.
You kind of just get stuck in a way. Like, it's almost like, okay, like, I don't know what to do. Like, you know, and I very much feel those, you know, those moments. I think that's where music is very special to me, is that, like, a lot of times when I'm having those moments and it turns into something musically, that's kind of where the snowball kind of, so like if I write that song, like then it's a bunch of songs that kind of come after that. Like I kind of get in that mode, and so like the snowball kind of goes down the hill a little bit, and it kind of fuels that fire a little bit. And so yeah, it's definitely a gift and a curse, and like you said, it can be like a superpower in a way.
There's a yin and a yang to everything. A dark and a light, and it's finding the ability to see the light in it more so than the dark, and that takes time. It takes practice.
Oh yeah, because it took me a nice little while to find my voice and stuff, because like I still have a lot of my old music that I my first time getting in the studio still on my Spotify, and so like I was kind of hesitant about keeping it on. I'm like, and this stuff kind of sucks. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, but like, it's like, you can kind of like, I want people to be able to have that point of view to where it's like, okay, this is where I started. So like, now that I am more confident, now that I, know my voice and I know kind of where I'm going with it, like, go check that out, and then check out, what I'm doing now. And then you tell me, like, can you hear what it is that I'm trying to, project? And a lot of good things about like my writing, my songwriting is probably my strong suit. And so I leave a lot of my songwriting to like up to the person that's listening. So like it has like a bunch of the things that I write has a bunch of different meanings, has a bunch of different ways that you could like, if you hear it one way, somebody else might not hear it the same way. That's how I love to write. Like I love hearing the feedback from people of like, oh, I never, like, honestly, like, yeah, I can hear where you got that, and I really probably didn't even think about it in that way. And so, just my songwriting in general kind of leads itself to that whole thinking process, that whole, hopefully it's, you can hear the growth and all of that different stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's important to, again, we touched on this a little bit before, like, track your own growth. Like if you go to the Underground Music Collective website all the way back to 2016 when it was Lehigh Valley Underground, don't look at my photo galleries. But also, if you do look at those photo galleries, you will see the growth from me as a photographer then when I was just teaching myself to now. And it's like once in a while, I do go back there. I'm like, wow, I sucked. Oh, but this one was actually pretty good for back then.
And a lot of the things like that you develop too, like, so like a lot of the, if you go to my Instagram, like all of the graphics and stuff, like literally over the last couple of years, I've done my own graphics. Like, so like people be like, man, how did you create that cover? Or how did you, like, I got it popping in Canva. That's what I did. You know what I'm saying? I had to figure that out. And like, as an independent, like you said, about, you have to get creative. Like I can't spend money on every single thing. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so like I have to, I have to kind of take the initiative. So like, it was like, yeah, I can't be paying for covers when I got to pay for studio time or stuff like that. Let me figure out how I can do this myself. Like, and so I think I've been doing my own covers and stuff for the last like 2-3 years now. Yeah. And so like, as far as the Instagram and stuff like that, like I can basically do it. Like, I mean, you got 1,000,001 apps to do everything on now. You just kind of takes time to be able to kind of figure it out and do it. And so, a lot, even the videos and stuff, like it's time consuming, obviously, but that's what basically that's the only thing that really money does to me is basically it just speeds up your timeline. Yeah. And so, but having that background of like, say I do get to the point to where like, I don't have to worry about creating all my own stuff and graphics and stuff like that. At least I know how it works. Yeah. So like now, like if somebody comes to me with like, maybe they say a crazy price to me, it was like, dude, I know it don't cost that much. Yeah. Like I know, like, I did what I did for $5 and you telling me it's going to cost me 500. Now I know, kind of have that, background information on different things to where it's like, the music industry is so cutthroat. Like people are going to take advantage of you if they can, and people are going, do things to you if they can get away with it. And so, having that background of, I know what, that took, I knew,
what good is.
Yeah. And I did it. I mean, obviously if other people are thinking it's good and doing it at quality and stuff like that, I know the steps that it takes in order to get there. So now you can kind of put yourselves in better positions when you're in different meetings and different things to where it's like, no, I know, that's not all the way what that is, or I know that, it's going to take a little bit more than what you telling me, or, just different stuff like that. And just so having that background information and just having that kind of, in your back pocket to where like, okay, like maybe I need something quick, fast, and I can't get somebody to do it in the timeline that I need for them to do it. Okay, let me go ahead and get my computer and let me go ahead and get to work. You know what I'm saying? And so it just makes it a little bit easier and gives you another avenue to kind of go down.
Absolutely. We are coming up on time, but I've got a few more questions for you. We've
sure.
talked a lot about the journey so far.
Mm-hmm.
What about the journey to come? A lot of 2023 left in play.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
So currently I am working on a lot of projects. Obviously, Jams and Joysticks, I plan on ramping that up a little bit. I will get back to doing some streaming. I did kind of cut that out to kind of save some time to do some other things. So I'll be back to streaming. I'll still be doing interviews and things like that. As far as musically, stay tuned. I do have some things in the works that I am very excited to, share, and I will be actually sharing it, fairly soon. So, if you don't follow me on socials, please do. And I will be like releasing all of that stuff, but I do have a lot of music in the works. I have a lot of things that I would like to do as far as collabs and, different things like that. Just working with different people, as far as kind of creating, like, cause another thing that I'm kind of into is like, the whole videography movie type, like music videos have kind of lost their luster.
Mm-hmm.
But I have, like, as the songwriting kind of progressed, I've wanted to like write like short series and like maybe like short movies and stuff. And I kind of want to incorporate that into like music videos and stuff. And so, finding people to work with on stuff like that, to kind of storyboard and just different stuff like that. So, music, gaming, I'm trying to hit the gambit as far as, and keeping it within my brand, obviously. But I have a lot to come as far, 2023 is looking to be a huge year, into 2024. Like, these next 2 years for me are going to be humongous. And so I'm hoping to kind of continue and, kind of keep the trajectory going.
Mm-hmm. Well, best of luck going forward.
Thank you much.
I have one deep question before we start to do all the social media and sign off stuff. So if there's one lesson from your entire creative journey to this point that you would go back and tell your younger self, or that you would impart to somebody, just starting out, that would be invaluable to them, what would that lesson be?
This thing is hard, man. Like, do not think that you going like, it is easy to look at social media and all these different things and see all these people with all these money and all this different stuff. Like, that is not reality. Like, people are showing you the best part of their lives. You don't know what's going on in the background. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So you might as well just do what you know and stick to yourself and, basically stay authentic and go at your own pace. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't compare yourself to other people. That's very hard to do. But it's true. Like, you can't compare yourself to, like, I would be stupid to compare myself to my favorite artist, Lil Wayne. Like, that would be stupid. Like, why would I do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's easy to do that when you see all of the stuff that, you kind of aspire to, the things you want. And, you might want the house, the cars, and all that different stuff. But, like, you have to, eventually you can get there. And obviously that's what basically you should use that for, is motivation. Like, maybe I might have to take a few different detours. I might have to take a few different steps. I might not get there the way that, they got there, because your journey is your journey. And so you just have to stay true to yourself and not try to compare yourself to other people.
And also, it never happens overnight for anybody, even if it appears that way.
Overnight does not mean overnight. You don't know how much money went into that. You, like, especially like these artists were like, you have a lot of artists that people like, they're not that good. Well, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it to give you the illusion that they're doing, what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And so like, you're just better off going at your own pace. You better off focusing, not necessarily having tunnel vision, but, keep that kind of, that buffer to where it's like, hey, that's possible. So like, if that's something you want to do, look at that, kind of internalize it to where, like, I'm not there yet. I'm going to use that as motivation. And, that's my push to kind of get there.
Yeah. I think of, like, when I moved to town, like, Lizzo had just blown up, right? And, it's like all of a sudden you're hearing about Lizzo everywhere. Like, who's this Lizzo person? But, when you actually, like, peel back the story, she was living in her car for almost a decade, negative bank balances, eating fast food every night. Like, I think she lived in her car 3 different times. It's like, the Lizzo that you just started hearing about one day did not become that person overnight. There's
and
no
that journey that she went on propelled her to where she is. And I'm pretty sure that she had moments to where she was, like, man, I really want to, get to this place. Or man, like, I'm in such a place of lack. But you really, like, I guess the way you should look at it is look at yourself like you're coming from a place of abundance instead of lack.
Yeah.
And so I think, and that's very hard to do, especially like if you had a hard upbringing or, hard childhood or whatever the case may be. Like, you kind of have to have the mindset of you're starting from a place of abundance, and it can only grow from there.
Yeah. What can you do right now with what you have? I look at it as, leaning on football again, what's the down and distance right now?
Yeah.
What do I need to do to move the chains?
Yep.
And sometimes like it's 3rd and 1.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 3rd and 30.
Sometimes it's like, sometimes it's a little move. Sometimes, you got to kind of, take that risk, so, but you kind of have to stay within self. That it goes back to that. Like, there are things that you might have to do that you not necessarily, never thought you would have to do, or you might never have to, thought about doing. But like, if you're true to self, you'll know if it's the right time to do it. You'll know if it's the right thing to do. And so it's just, be your own star player. Like, I mean, there's no reason to kind of look at other people and be like, oh man, well, they made it, I can't make it because they got this, that, and the other. I mean, that doesn't even make any sense.
Absolutely. I love it, man.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining.
Not a problem.
Before I do my sign off, I want to give you a chance to let people know where they can follow the journey online.
So I am 24. Once again, you can go to my website if you like. It's thereal24.net. I do have a solo link. It is solo.2/24world. You'll find all of my links there. And yeah, I'll be all over socials. I'll be making sure that you see me pretty soon, with ads and whatnot. So don't click off of me if you see me coming by. But yeah, I have a lot of more music coming. I'll have, I'll be doing the gaming stuff. I'll be having some fashion things come about, looking for sponsorships. If you want to collab with me, I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. So, I'm open to kind of do a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, if you see 24, hey, come holler at me.
Support everything 24 is doing. It's great stuff.
Thank you, man.
Look forward to doing this again.
I hope so. I surely hope so.
Me too. I feel like we could keep going.
Yeah, yeah, we could.
I only have the room for so long, but I feel like we'll definitely do a part 2.
Yeah, I'm down with it.
And this has been the Quinn Spinn, 2 N's and Quinn, 2 N's and Spinn. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, YouTube, and more. Also on Instagram at Quinn Spinn Official. Learn more about the show as well at undergroundmusiccollective.com, our central hub for all things independent music, creativity, community, and more. UMC is also on all the socials: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can follow the UMC 20 playlist on Spotify, 20 fresh tracks, and the latest episode or episodes of this podcast. We're releasing 2 a week right now, so you get 2 bonus tracks probably until the summer. And
Freak This is on that playlist as well. So
it is.
Go ahead.
As of recording, and there'll be more tracks to come.
Yes, sir.
And NashLive.live, we've got some shows coming up. We've actually got a little birthday celebration up at the Holistic Connection in Madison taking place for yours truly. We've got some songwriters just going to be doing a little benefit for Underground Music Collective. That's this Friday, March 10th, 6 to 10, Holistic Connection, Rivergate location in Madison, Tennessee. Revel 9's all I've become. I'm going to take us out just like it brought us in, the end instead of the beginning, and I will see you this Thursday with Claire Cunningham.